Forms and design. As we know, design is the process of purposeful visual creation. So, definitely, a good design is the best possible way of visual representation of something. That may be a process or a product. So, if you consider this design, which has some elements, okay, which determines the ultimate appearance and the contents of a design. So if you see, these elements are called elements of design. There are four elements of design that are: the first one is conceptual element, second is visual elements, the third one is relational elements, and the fourth one is practical elements. Let us discuss one by one of each elements in detail. The first one is conceptual element. These conceptual elements that are not visible, they do not actually exist but seems to be presented. For instance, we feel that there is a point, there is a line marking the contour of an object, there are planes enveloping some volume, and a volume is occupying some space. So these are the some of the points that a conceptual element will have. If you see these elements of design, the conceptual elements, it may be of a point, line, plane, or a volume. Okay. If we see the properties of conceptual elements, so as I emphasized earlier, which are not visible, invisible, they do not actually exist but seems to be presented. They may be of a point, a line, a plane, or a volume. So these are the four conceptual elements that are being considered. Let us have a look on the first conceptual element, a point. So a point is nothing but which indicates a position. Okay, for suppose here a point is there. Okay, so it is nothing but it is indicating some position. Of course, this point, for suppose here I am dropping a point. Okay, if it is visible, okay, something like this. Okay, so this point doesn't have length and breadth. Okay, of course, it does not have any area or space. Okay, so these are the some of the properties of a point with respect to the designer perspective. Okay, so it is the beginning and end of a line. In some other ways we can define. Okay, and the next element is a line. Okay, so how a line is defined and how it would be, let us have a look. Okay, so the second conceptual element, line, if we see the properties of a line, okay, so this line is nothing but it is the path trace of a point when it moves. Okay, so here a point is there when it is moving. Okay, so it is moving in some direction. Okay, so in that direction a line is framed. This is nothing but the path trace of a point when it is in motion. Of course, if you consider a line which has length but which has no breadth, and also it has position and direction. See the motion of the point we can identify, the position of the point we can identify, so it is nothing but which has position and direction. Let's go to next conceptual element, that is a plane. A plane is nothing but, as we know, it is two-dimensional representation. So let's have a look on the properties of a plane. Okay, so the plane, it is nothing but the motion of line. If you consider line is the motion of a point and plane is the motion of a line. Okay, there is interrelation, but which is not intrinsic to it. For suppose a line, here it is like this. If it is moving in this direction, then it cannot be formed a plane. So the motion of a line, which should not be intrinsic to it, it may be in some other direction, as like this, any other direction except this direction. Okay, so the motion for here, a line is there, 11 and 12 it is representing, and it is moving in down directions. Okay, so the motion of this line, okay, which is representing a plane, okay, which has length, of course this is the length, as well as which has breadth, right? Okay, so this plane generally it doesn't have thickness. Okay, so the representation of a plane is in terms of length and breadth. Second one is which is the motion of a line which is not intrinsic to it. Okay, so this way we can represent a plane with these properties. Let us see the next conceptual element, that would be a volume, and how a volume is placed, how this could be achieved. Let us see. Okay, so the volume is nothing but what? It is motion of a plane which is not intrinsic to it. Okay, so line comes from a point, plane comes from a line, and volume comes from a plane. Okay, so the plane motion, if you see here, this is the plane representation and it is in this motion. So when the plane is in motion, okay, so two planes are framed here. Okay, so the representation, if you see, okay, the amount of which it moves, the plane moves, okay, so it is differentiated with some distance, it is called thickness. So already we know plane has length and breadth, but there is no thickness. Here the thickness is in the form of the motion, amount of motion of the plane. It is nothing but the thickness. So the plane which has length, breadth and thickness. So these are the four elements of design in conceptual elements. So these elements of design, the first element is conceptual element, and in the conceptual element these are framed point, line, plane and volume. Now let's go to the second representation, that is called elements of design, is visual elements.